Salut coders, this is PSK. Welcome back to our channel. Warm greetings to those who are joining us for the first time. In this tutorial, I want to show you how to assign a user a new role after creating a new user. So let's get started. So here, let's create a new role, and we want to call this role maybe a admin. Then we can save this. So we went to our realm, which is Spring Boot code, and the realm rows. Then we create a new row called admin. So if you come back here, we have the list of rows, and this is the one that we created, and we want to assign this to a user through a admin client on our Spring Boot project. So let's open our Spring Boot project. So in our Spring Boot project, previously we created a user, and this is the user that we created. And this is the implementation of creating a new user. So when creating, you can either set a row when creating, or we can assign it separately. So I want to assign this row separately by creating a new interface called a row service. Let's create a new service called row service. If I go here, I'll create a new service. I call it row service, and it's an interface. Let's make it a void, and I say assign. Here I can say assign row, and we want a string, which is a user ID, the user that we want to assign, and string the row name. Remember, we created a row name called admin, so this is the row that you want to assign. Let's create an implementation of this, and let me move it into Keycloak package. Then I'll create a new Java class, and I call service implementation. And this one, it implements. And let me override this. And here let's add service. Let's add it required. I think we are using Lombok in this project. We have Lombok. Then let's make it private. Final. And we have a bin called Keycloak. This one. Yeah, this is the bin, and I created here. If you go to our configs, yeah, if you go to our configs, this is the bin, which is called Keycloak. So that's the bin. So if you go to our user service, I want to call this the realm that we are going to use, and this is the realm. So I want to, let me put this realm. This realm Spring Boot code is this realm that you are seeing here. So you must specify your realm. So in our user here, we want to add a new method called get user resources. So I can make it public. Put void for now. Get user resource. Then here is string user ID. So the first thing that I want to do, I want to get a user resource, right? So I can say get, we have this method called get user resource. This one, I can call this method this user's resources. So with this user resources, I can now use this user's resources to get a user. So I can just say .get, and here I can pass the user ID. Then after passing it will return a user resource. So I want to retain this. This is the user resources that I want. Then here, let me remove this and just say return. So here we can get the user that you want to assign a row. So if you have a row, so let's have this here. I want to call this method in my Keycloak. I want to get this user in my row service. So let me add this method here. And I can import this. And in my row service implementation, let me add this Keycloak service. Private final Keycloak. This one, let's use this one. Keycloak user service. And I want to get that resource first. So you can see here, I got this resource. So the purpose of this resource is the resource that we want to assign a new row. So if I do this on this one, dot rows dot, and you can see this one, we can take this room level, then we can add a resource. So I can just say it's allow a list of collections that we want to add. So I can say collections to list. Then it requires a room representation. So this room representation, this class is the one that we want to find now. We want to look for this. We want to look for this row so that we can get this room representation from the row that we pass. So we need to find also this row on like what we did here. So what you can do here, we can come here and say Keycloak, and we want to say this one was the user resources, and we need also room resources. So I can make it private and I can call it rows resource. I can say get rows resource like this, and I'll just say return Keycloak dot room, and we can pass our room, and then we just say rows. So it will return this one. So from this now, we need to find that this row, if the row exists, if its admin exists. So you can do this. You can call this now. Then you can say dot get, and you can find this row name. Then you just say to representation, which is this one, row representation, which I showed you here. So this one is no longer necessary, and you can assign this row to this user. So by doing this, we can assign our row to this user. So we are now okay. So let's add an API for this. So here we can create a new API, and we can call it Keycloak row API. Add REST controller. Add request mapping, which is we can call it rows. And this one is just it's an update. So let's add it required Axe constructor. And here we just say private. Final. We need to call this row service. Then our method, I can say public void, it's okay. Now assign, or I can say response entity, and I put a question mark. I don't know what I want to return by now. Then I'll say assign row. Then I will pass the string user ID and also string row name. And let's specify it's a put mapping. Since it's a put mapping, I just say do this, and I say user, which is the rows, assign row for this user, which is it's a path variable, and our method will fail here. Let's add a path variable. Here is supposed to be a request param, and I make it a request param, and I'll call this dot assign row, which is our user ID, this one, in the row name, and we can say return response entity status created build. So by doing this, we can assign a new row to this user with the user ID that you are going to pass on our as a path variable. So we can run our application and we can test this. So here, let's go to this application YAML and look which port 9095, and it's running on this context path 9095. So I want to say come here. This is the music app that we are currently building. Here you just say 9095, and this is the context path, and you can remove this, and it's going to be a swagger UI.html, and you can do this. So it loaded, and this is, let's look for the new API that we created, this one, which is a raw API. The problem with this is that it's because of security. We need to secure our application, must be secure before we use it. So what I can do, we need to create a token or to create a new user. So let me just create a new user first. On previous tutorial, I showed you how to create a new user, and this user, I can call it test email test at gmail.com. First name, I can say test user. Password test 81234, and I can create this user. You can see the user was created. If I go to our Keycloak, you can see that user. If I go to users, you can see this is the user that we just created, and this is the user that you want to assign a new row. If you go to row mappings, you can see the row admin does not exist here. So let me just mark this as verified, and I can click save, because I'm using this in testimonial, it doesn't exist. So it's not mine, but I just want to use it just for testing. What I want to do now, from this now, I want to row mapping, I want to test with postman so that I can get an access token, because if I copy this user ID, and come here to the rows, let's say I say tryout, and the row name is admin. I want to assign this row to this user. If I try to do this, I'm not authorized to do this. So I need to pass a bearer token because our API are secured. So let me open Postman. So I want to modify this one, this URL. Currently, I'm developing a Biscuit Music like a Spotify clone. So you can watch those videos if you're interested. But now I want to modify this realm, and this one is going to be Spring Boot code, which is this realm. And I can paste this here. And then for the users, let me go to the body. The client ID is the same, but the username is different. It's called test. I created a user code test, I think so, but the password is the same. Let me try to log in. Yeah, I now have the access token. So if I have this access token, I can now use this access token in order to assign this row. So let me come here and I will click this lock, and I'll paste my access token, and I click authorized, close this. And before I show you row assignment, you can see in the row mapping, there's not that row. We don't have that row for this user. So let me test now. You can see it shows 201. If I come back here and let me go here and come back here, or let me reload this, you can see this row is assigned to this user, which is test. This is how you can assign a row to a user. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you are new to this channel, may you kindly subscribe, click the notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever we upload new video. Salut coders.